At 9:07 p.m., Jonathan Caldwell watched 12 years of his life collapse in silence. No explosion, no warning sirens, just red alerts flooding his screen while the city outside kept glowing, laughing, living, completely unaware that one of its most powerful men was breaking apart alone on the top floor of his own empire. His hands were shaking. His phone calls went unanswered. His billion-dollar future was being erased line by line, and for the first time in his life, money, status, and pride meant absolutely nothing. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway. Not an executive, not security. A black cleaning woman stood at his door, someone he had passed 100 times without ever learning her name. And in that moment of pure desperation, Jonathan was forced to choose between his pride and survival. What happened next would expose a betrayal, shatter deep-rooted prejudice, and change both of their lives forever. Stay, because before this night ends, something shocking will be revealed that no one saw coming. Most people don't notice the woman who empties their trash. They don't learn her name. They don't wonder what she used to be before life broke her down into a uniform and a mop. And that's exactly why what happened on the 47th floor of Caldwell Meridian Technologies still makes people swallow hard when they hear it. Because the night Jonathan John Caldwell lost everything, the only person left in the building who could save him was the black cleaning lady everyone treated like she was part of the wallpaper. John had a face that belonged on magazine covers. Clean haircut, calm smile, expensive suit that looked effortless, like money had been sewn into the fabric. He'd built CMT into one of Seattle's fastest rising tech companies, and he wore that success the way some men wear armor. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't beg. He didn't show fear, not in public. But on this particular night, at exactly 9:07 p.m., the armor cracked. He was alone in his corner office, high above the wet streets and neon glow, reviewing the final documents for a contract worth $10 billion. $10 billion. It was the kind of deal that doesn't just change a company, it changes history. His board had planned champagne. His investors were already dreaming out loud. The next morning would crown him, then his main monitor blinked once, just a flicker, like a nervous twitch. A red warning appeared in the corner, then another. Then the warnings multiplied so fast they looked like a disease spreading across the glass. Alerts stacked, security logs collapsed. Internal systems locked him out. And the worst part wasn't the noise of it. The worst part was how quiet it felt. Like the building itself was holding its breath while someone reached into his company and started ripping it apart from the inside. John grabbed his phone and called his head of engineering. Nothing. Called his security chief. Voicemail. Called again. His fingers got sweaty. His pulse got loud. He tried to open backups, but his access was denied as if the system no longer recognized him. He slammed his palm against the desk hard enough to sting. For the first time in 12 years, he watched helplessly as something he built began to die. Outside his wall of windows, Seattle kept living. A couple crossed the street with umbrellas. A rideshare pulled up to a hotel. The city looked indifferent, beautiful, and cruel. John stared at those lights and felt something bitter rise in him. It wasn't just the fear of losing money. It was the humiliation of being powerless. He'd spent his whole life believing that if you were smart enough and ruthless enough, you could outrun disaster. He'd stepped over people to keep moving. He'd ignored voices that sounded inconvenient. He'd mistaken silence for strength. Now the silence in that office felt like punishment. And then through it, he heard footsteps. Slow, steady, not rushing, not panicking. A soft squeak followed, like wheels rolling over polished floor. John turned sharply, expecting security, or maybe a late-night executive. Instead, a woman appeared at his doorway, pushing a cleaning cart. She wore a simple gray uniform. Her hair was pulled back tight, practical. Her skin was deep brown, and her face carried that particular expression people get when they've spent years learning how to be small in spaces that don't want them. But her eyes were clear, watchful, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and learned to read rooms in seconds. She stopped when she saw him in the dark, surrounded by flashing red warnings. "Oh," she said softly. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was still here. I can come back later." Most people in his world would have walked right past her without a second glance. John had done it 100 times. He couldn't have told you her name. He couldn't have told you the sound of her voice. But in that moment, she was the only living person in the building. John let out a laugh that sounded wrong even to him. "Don't bother. You're not interrupting anything. I'm just watching my company get murdered." The woman's hands tightened around the card handle. She didn't step away. She didn't say the polite thing and disappear. Instead, she looked past him at the screens. Something changed in her face. Not fear, not curiosity, recognition. "That's not a system glitch," she said quietly. John turned toward her, irritation flaring. "Excuse me." She pointed, gentle but certain. "The pattern, the timing of the failures, the permissions. Someone's inside your network. They're taking what they want and deleting the trail behind them." John stared at her like she'd just spoken another language. "How would you know that?" The question came out sharper than he intended. It wasn't only doubt. It was the reflex he'd been trained into. The reflex to assume a black woman in a cleaning uniform couldn't possibly understand something built for men like him. The woman held his gaze, not angry, not pleading, just steady. "Because I used to protect networks like this for a living," she said, "before life took everything from me." John felt the room tilt. He looked at her again, really looked, and realized he had never done that before. Not once. He had never asked who she was when she wasn't holding a mop. "What's your name?" he asked, voice lower. "Aisha," she replied. "Aisha Bennett." John repeated it in his head, like he was trying to make the sound stick. Aisha Bennett, a name that should have been known in his building long before this disaster. On the screens, data continued vanishing. The clock was ticking toward morning, toward the signing, toward the moment the world would find out CMT was hollowed out. John's pride fought him. Pride always fought first. He thought of his board, his investors, his reputation. He thought of what people would say if they knew he needed help from the cleaning staff. He imagined the smirks, the jokes, the quiet cruelty that executives can deliver without ever raising their voices. And then a darker thought cut through him, sharp as glass. If the only reason he was hesitating was because Aisha was black and wearing a uniform, what did that say about him? He swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry. "Can you help me?" he asked. It came out almost like a whisper, almost like surrender. Aisha didn't celebrate. She didn't look surprised. She simply nodded once, as if she had been waiting her whole life for someone to finally ask her instead of ignoring her. "I can try," she said, "but I need full access, no restrictions, and I need you to trust me completely." Trust. The word landed between them with weight. John stepped closer to his desk, opened the locked drawer, and pulled out his master access card. The one that granted authority across the entire company. The one he never let out of his sight. His fingers paused above Aisha's palm. In that tiny pause, his whole life flashed. The meetings where he talked over people, the times he assumed competence, had a certain look. The moments he walked past the cleaning crew with his eyes forward, because seeing them would mean admitting they were human, too. He hated the feeling rising in his throat, shame mixed with fear. Then he placed the card in her hand. Aisha's fingers closed around it, calm and unshaking. "If I do this," she said softly, "I need you to remember something." John's voice was raw. "Anything." "I'm not a miracle," she said. "I'm a person." The words hit him harder than any alert on the screen. Aisha stepped into his office, set her card aside, and sat at his computer like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Her hands moved to the keyboard with a confidence that looked almost unreal in the glow of panic-red warnings. Lines of code filled the screen. John stood behind her, heart pounding, watching the impossible unfold. For the first time in his life, the man who never asked for help was forced to do something even harder than admitting he was losing. He had to sit still. He had to let someone he once overlooked fight for the thing he was too proud to lose. And if Aisha was right, the attack wasn't just destroying his company, it was exposing something broken in him too. Now here's my lead-in for the questions, because I want the viewers to sit with this moment for a second. If the only person who can save you is someone you've been trained not to see, would your pride let you accept their help before it's too late? The first thing Jonathan Caldwell noticed was how quiet Aisha became when the servers came back to life. At 3:14 a.m., the final red warning vanished from the screen. The last corrupted file rebuilt itself. The system logs stopped screaming. Caldwell Meridian Technologies, his empire, his obsession, his identity, was no longer bleeding. John exhaled like a man surfacing after being held underwater. It's working, he whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might break the spell. You actually did it. Aisha leaned back slowly in the chair. Her shoulders sagged, the tension she'd been holding for hours finally finding a way out. Her eyes were bloodshot, her fingers stiff, but her voice stayed steady. Your backup architecture saved you, she said. Most companies don't invest in redundancy like that. Whoever attacked you assumed arrogance would finish the job. John laughed once, bitter and hollow. Arrogance almost did. He turned to look at her, really look at her. The woman who, 6 hours earlier, he had barely registered as human, now sat at the center of his universe. And with that realization came an uncomfortable truth. If she hadn't been there, if he hadn't listened, if his pride had won, there would be nothing left. Thank you, he said quietly. Aisha didn't smile. Don't thank me yet. You're not safe. That wiped the relief off his face. What do you mean? She tapped the screen, pulling up a set of logs John didn't recognize. This attack was surgical. Whoever did this knew your system far too well. That means one of two things. John swallowed. Either they've been watching us for a long time, or they're already inside, Aisha finished. The silence that followed was heavier than the panic earlier that night. John felt something twist in his chest. You're saying this wasn't random. I'm saying someone wanted you weakened, she said. Not destroyed, just desperate enough to sell, panic, or make a mistake. The realization hit him like a punch. Tomorrow's $10 billion deal, the timing, the pressure, the vulnerability. This wasn't just an attack, it was a setup. When the sun finally rose over Seattle, painting the glass towers in soft gold, John didn't go home. He didn't sleep. Instead, he called an emergency executive meeting. At 8:30 a.m., the boardroom filled with sharp suits, expensive watches, and carefully masked anxiety. Whispers buzzed through the room like static. Then John walked in. Behind him was Aisha, still in her gray cleaning uniform. The reaction was instant and unmistakable. Eyes flicked to her, then away. Brows furrowed. A few mouths tightened in disapproval. One executive coughed, as if the sight of her had caught in his throat. John saw all of it, and for the first time it made him angry. Sit, he said, voice calm but firm. The room quieted. I'm canceling all external meetings today, John continued, including the signing. A ripple of alarm spread across the table. Gregory Haynes, the chief technology officer, leaned forward sharply. Jonathan, you can't be serious. That deal is meaningless if we're compromised, John cut in. Last night, this company was attacked. Now the room froze. John gestured to Aisha. This is Aisha Bennett. She stopped the breach. She rebuilt our systems. She saved CMT while the rest of you were asleep. A beat passed. Then Gregory laughed. Not loudly, not rudely. Just enough to make his skepticism clear. You're telling us the cleaning lady fixed what our entire cybersecurity team couldn't? He said. The words landed like a slap. Aisha felt it immediately, the old familiar sting, the tone she'd heard her whole life, not just doubt, but dismissal. John's jaw tightened. Yes. Gregory shook his head. With all due respect, Jonathan, this is reckless. We don't know her credentials, her background, her motives. Aisha kept her gaze forward, but inside something hardened. She had anticipated this, expected it. What surprised her was how tired she felt of it. John leaned both hands on the table. I watched her work. I watched the attack unravel under her hands. That's all the credentials I need, Gregory scoffed. So we're trusting the future of this company to someone who was literally pushing a mop 12 hours ago? That was when John snapped. Enough. The room went dead silent. You don't get to decide someone's worth by the uniform they wear, John said, his voice low but dangerous. And you don't get to question my judgment when it's the only reason we're still sitting in this room. He turned to Aisha. Effective immediately, he said. Aisha Bennett will lead our new cybersecurity division. She reports directly to me. The reaction was explosive. Whispers, protests, shock. Gregory stood up halfway. This is insane. John met his eyes without blinking. What's insane is that it took losing everything for me to realize how blind this company has been. Aisha felt dozens of eyes burn into her back as she followed John out of the boardroom. Some curious, some hostile, some afraid. In the hallway, Gregory caught up to them. You're making a mistake, he said sharply. You don't know who she really is. John stopped, slowly turned. I know exactly who she is, he replied. She's the reason you still have a job. Aisha walked past Gregory without a word, but the look she gave him, calm, unflinching, made his jaw tighten. Over the next 2 weeks, Aisha rebuilt CMT's security from the ground up. She worked longer hours than anyone else. She implemented systems that exposed weaknesses executives didn't want to admit existed. She trained a small team, young engineers, overlooked analysts, people who knew what it felt like to be ignored. Some employees welcomed her, others resisted quietly. Doors closed when she walked by. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Compliments were delivered with surprise, as if competence from her was unexpected. But Aisha didn't flinch. She had survived worse than whispers. Then one night, alone in her office, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. A login, an administrative login, at 1:42 a.m. from inside the company. Her fingers moved fast as she traced the access. The pattern was wrong, too careful, too clean. Someone was still watching. Someone was testing her defenses. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. One message. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. Aisha stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Not with fear, but with certainty. She was right. This wasn't over. She forwarded the message to John immediately. Within seconds, he called. Are you safe? His voice was tight. For now, she said, but whoever did this knows I'm close. Silence. Then John said quietly, this is my fault. No, Aisha replied. This is the cost of truth. The next morning, as she walked through the parking garage, something caught her eye beneath her car. A small black device, a GPS tracker. Aisha crouched slowly, her breath shallow. They knew where she lived, where she worked, where she moved. She removed it, stood up, and didn't look back. When she placed it on John's desk later that day, his face went pale. This has crossed a line, he said. We should call the police. Not yet, Aisha replied. If we move too soon, whoever this is will disappear. We need them to think they're winning. John studied her. This woman who had walked into his life invisible and now stood at the center of a storm. This is dangerous, he said. Aisha nodded. So is staying silent. That night, they set a trap. Aisha stayed late, lights on, working on a file that looked like a goldmine of sensitive data. John waited in his office, watching through the glass. At 11:36 p.m., the hallway cameras flickered. Then footsteps. A shadow crossed the doorway. And Gregory Haynes stepped inside. Aisha didn't turn around. You work too hard, Gregory said lightly. Burnout's a real thing, she smiled faintly. So is betrayal. The lights snapped on. John stepped forward. It's over, he said. Gregory froze, and in his eyes, Aisha saw it. Not anger, fear. Now, before we move into what happens next, I want the viewers to pause with this moment, because everything changes here. Gregory Haynes didn't run. That was the first thing that surprised Jonathan Caldwell. When the lights snapped on and the truth stood naked between them, Gregory didn't bolt for the door or start shouting. He just stood there, frozen, like a man who had rehearsed denial his whole life, but never prepared for being seen. Aisha turned slowly in her chair. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of computers filled the room, steady and indifferent, as if the machines themselves were waiting to hear which version of humanity would win tonight. It was you, John said quietly. There was no anger in his voice anymore, just something heavier, disappointment. All this time, Gregory's lips twitched into a bitter smile. You think this is simple? You think I woke up one day and decided to be the villain? Aisha stood up. You didn't have to be, she said. You chose to be. Gregory laughed, hollow and sharp. Easy for you to say. You walked in here and became a hero overnight. Aisha's eyes darkened. No, she replied calmly. I walked in here invisible, just like I've been my whole life. The words landed hard. Gregory's composure cracked. You don't know what it's like, he snapped at John. You built this company and became untouchable. I stayed in your shadow for 8 years. When Apex Dominion offered me money, power, a way out, I took it. John closed his eyes briefly. You tried to destroy everything we built. I tried to survive, Gregory shot back. Integrity doesn't pay bills. It doesn't erase resentment. Aisha felt something stir inside her, not sympathy, but recognition. She knew desperation. She knew resentment, but she also knew where that road led. You could have asked for help, she said. Gregory looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a split second his anger faltered. People like me don't get help, he muttered. Aisha didn't raise her voice. Neither do people like me. We survive anyway. Security arrived minutes later. Gregory didn't resist as they escorted him out. As the elevator doors closed, John realized something chilling. If Aisha hadn't been there, if she hadn't noticed the patterns, if she hadn't refused to stay silent, Gregory would have succeeded. The next morning, John faced the hardest decision of his career. His legal team urged caution. His board begged for discretion. We can bury this, they said. Handle it quietly. Protect the stock. Protect the brand. John looked around the room at faces that once defined success to him. Then he looked at Aisha. She didn't tell him what to do. She just met his eyes, steady and honest. The truth hurts once, she said softly. Lies hurt forever. John nodded. That afternoon, Caldwell Meridian Technologies called a press conference. The room was packed. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward, hungry. John stood at the podium with Aisha beside him, and he told the truth. He told them about the attack, the internal betrayal, the attempted takeover. He didn't sanitize it. He didn't hide behind legal language. Then he did something no one expected. He turned to Aisha. This company exists today because this woman refused to be invisible, he said, because she was willing to speak up when everyone else was silent. A reporter raised a hand. Mr. Caldwell, is it true she was working as a cleaner? Yes, John replied without hesitation, and that fact should make all of us deeply uncomfortable. The story exploded. Headlines didn't just talk about corporate espionage. They talked about bias, about overlooked talent, about a black woman who saved $1 billion company while being treated like she didn't belong. Customers rallied, investors stayed, some even increased their support. A week later, Gregory Haynes was arrested at an airport trying to flee the country. Under federal investigation, Apex Dominion systems collapsed piece by piece. CMT didn't fall, it grew. But the most important changes didn't show up on charts or spreadsheets. 3 months later, John asked Aisha to follow him down to the basement, the same server room where everything had begun. She stopped when she saw the plaque on the wall, the Bennett Innovation and Security Center. Her breath caught. John, you didn't have to. I did, he interrupted gently. This company nearly died because we confused titles with value. I won't make that mistake again. Aisha wiped her eyes, embarrassed by the tears. I don't want to be remembered as a miracle, she said. John smiled. You won't be. You'll be remembered as proof. Proof that brilliance doesn't wear one face. Proof that dignity isn't assigned by job titles. Proof that sometimes the people we step over are the ones holding us up. Months later, as the sun set over Seattle, John and Aisha stood side by side on a quiet balcony. I used to think success meant never needing anyone, John admitted. Turns out, that was just another kind of blindness. Aisha nodded. And I used to think being seen meant being safe. Now I know it means being brave. Their wedding wasn't extravagant. No headlines, no cameras, just people who mattered. When asked what changed his life, John didn't talk about money or technology. He talked about learning to see. And Aisha never forgot where she came from. She hired people others overlooked. She listened to voices others ignored. She kept her old cleaning badge in her office, not as a reminder of pain, but of truth. That worth isn't given, it's recognized. Somewhere out there, someone is being ignored right now. Someone is walking past a person who could change their life, if only they were willing to look. And that's what this story is really about. Before we end, I want to hear from you. How did this story make you feel? Do you think society still overlooks people because of race or job titles? If you like this story, comment 111 below to let me know. Tell us which country you're watching from. And if this story moved you, please share it, because someone else might need this reminder today.